All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. First off, I just want to say thanks everyone for joining us this morning. This is the first of the year of our Tennessee Sustainable Spirits webinar series. We like to have at least 2 of these webinars a year, trying to bring sustainability projects, programs, and new technologies to the spirits industry. And so my name is Caleb Powell, and I'm an environmental scientist for the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation's Office of Sustainable Practices. I work alongside Mark Valencia, who's the mind behind our Tennessee Sustainable Spirits program. And so what we're going to do, everyone is muted upon entry to reduce the amount of background noise. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, if you have any issues with audio or video, make sure that you use our chat function over on the right side to send a message to me, and to I can sort of help you out trying to figure out your audio video issues. I'm going to be the host today for our amazing speakers, and one of the benefits from having a live webinar is the interaction with our audience. And so we really do hope that you use the chat function to ask us questions or give comments on some things that you have noticed or have thought about that maybe the topics of this program and this webinar bring to you. So I'm actually sending a chat right now over to, look over on your right side. It just says, this is the chat box. Please send your questions and comments here. Now, whenever you are sending that, there is a send to and a drop down box. Now, whenever you are sending that, make sure the word host is in there so that I'll get that, or it can be all participants for everyone to see that, or all panelists. Just make sure that at least the word host or all is the part of that, so that I will get those questions or comments and can help you out or ask those questions to our amazing speakers. So before we get started, what we've started to do with our webinars is we ask a question before and ask a question after to see if you actually learned anything from these webinars. So what I'm going to do, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mentimeter, but you should see on your screen right now. If you can just go on your phone, you can go on your computer as well, but it might be easier on your phone to go to menti.com, MENTI.com, that's at the top. And then you're going to, whenever you go, it's going to ask you for a code. That code is 83681314. So I want you to go on there and answer these 4 questions for us. It says, I feel knowledgeable about the following. So we've got sustainability in the spirits industry, solar energy, value stream mapping, requirements for solar at my facility. So, it's okay if you already know quite a bit about something or one of these topics. It's okay if you don't really know much at all. I mean, that's the beauty for having these educational webinars. So if everyone can just go to Menti, type all this in and give us your honest opinion on how you feel about these topics. I'll give a couple minutes and then we'll get started. All right, if you're just joining us, we are asking that all the audience go to menti.com and use the code at the top, the 8 number code, and then give us your honest opinion on how knowledgeable you are on the 4 topics that are on. So if you're not knowledgeable really at all, you're going to give a 1. If you are an expert in any of these topics, you're going to give a 5. And it's not a problem if you don't know much about these topics, because that's the point of the webinar. So I think we've got, it's moving a little bit more, but we're going to go ahead and get started. I appreciate everyone, and we're going to don't sign off too early because we're going to ask you the same question again and see if you learned anything from this webinar. So let's see here. All right, and so we're back. And so I'm going to pass it on over to the mind behind our Tennessee Sustainable Spirits program, Mark Valencia. He's a great coworker, great friend of mine, and he is an environmental scientist with the Office of Sustainable Practices at TDEC. So he's going to go over a little bit about our Sustainable Spirits program, and then he's going to pass it on over to our next speaker, Chris. So the floor is yours, Mark.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Caleb. I really appreciate that. As Caleb mentioned, my name is Mark Valencia. I'm with the Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation, Office of Sustainable Practices, just like Caleb. And we're all excited to have you all out here for our first webinar series of the year. We do 2 every year. We like to briefly go over the Sustainable Spirits program, introduce who we are and what we do, and then pass it on to usually a subject matter expert that's related to some sustainability project within the Sustainable Spirits program. This is a quick little overview of sustainable practices, the office that we're from. So we cover several different things throughout our organization. It used to be broke down to a business, community, and state government institution team. I like to still keep the slide to show people some of the things that we do within our office. A big group of things we do is we like to work with any business, organization, individual, nonprofit who is looking to go above and beyond environmental regulatory compliance things within the state. So we like to work with those people who want to go above and beyond regulatory compliance. Things like from sustainable practices at home, in your community, businesses. So the Tennessee Sustainable Spirits program is a business group that we developed for our business team where we work with breweries, wineries, and distilleries within the state of Tennessee who would like to become more sustainable. We also work with large organizations like manufacturers, tire manufacturers, car manufacturers. Those organizations have their own program. It's called the Tennessee Green Star Partnership, where we do similar practices like we do with the Sustainable Spirits program, but for large manufacturers. We work on some Clean Tennessee Energy grants. We oversee the Tennessee Radon program, so if you're ever curious about radon in your home, we give out free testing kits. And then we do a lot of back-of-house stuff within state institution and government, so working on sustainable practices behind the scenes within TDEC and state government. The Tennessee Sustainable Spirits program is a voluntary program that assists wineries, wine growers, breweries, and distilleries in increasing sustainability by promoting best practices, providing technical assistance, and developing relationships. I like to share this slide just to show people, get a quick little elevator pitch of what we do and what we're looking to achieve through our program. Benefits to becoming a member of our program: you get unique branding. So if you look on the right of the slide, you can see the unique logo that we have developed for the Tennessee Sustainable Spirits program. So any member of our program has free use of this logo, and they can put it on products. We give them promotion material to promote that they're a Sustainable Spirits member. We have a display that they can put on their storefront to show people that they are recognized by TDEC as a Sustainable Spirits producer. So we provide unique branding opportunities. They have full recognition on our Office of Sustainable Practices webpage. So we have an interactive map showing where all of our members are and some of the cool sustainable practices that they're doing at their facility. From time to time, we write articles on our members and promote some of the great things they're doing within their organization. An additional benefit that I really like to emphasize for our members is we provide free high-level technical assistance. So when we approve a new member, we will write them a sustainability report mentioning all of the great things they got going on with a list of recommendations. These recommendations are recommendations, so they can do whatever they want with it. They don't have to follow any of them or pursue any of them. But if they would like to, we can provide some of that high-level technical assistance to help them figure out what is needed to actually achieve that recommendation goal. Every year we have a new member event where we have all the new members come to one of our members' facilities. We have a great party. We share resources. We talk about all of our new members, and we like to promote them as a new member into the program. And this is as well, we have our workshops. So we do 2 webinars every year and a workshop. The workshop is more of a in-person learning opportunity on sustainability for spirits producers. So even if you're not a member and you're looking to become a member, you're more than welcome to join us and learn more about what we do and maybe learn some new ideas for your facility. And we have a very thorough list of resources on our webpage. Whether you're a home brewer, someone who's a manufacturer, we have a ton of resources on there. And one of the resources that I'd like to discuss a little bit later is value stream mapping. So we're going to discuss that a little bit later, but it's a new resource added to our webpage, and I encourage you all to take a look at it at the end of this webinar. Some of the promotional items, so if you look on the bottom right, that is a coaster. I have one actually on me as well. It's a coaster with our Sustainable Spirits logo that we give our new members. The unique thing about the brand promotional items we like to share is a lot of them are sustainability focused. So those coasters are actually made out of recycled tire rubber. Let's go back to the Sustainable Practices real quick. We actually oversee a program called the Tennessee Environmental Act Program, where we give out grant money for organizations who can develop a new product or research on developing new products made out of recycled tire rubber. So it's a way to reduce the amount of landfill space being taken up by used tires. So we also do that as well. If you look on the far left, that is a bottle hanger, so you can hang that from a whiskey, wine, beer bottle, and it's actually printed on paper that's embedded with wildflower seeds. So when you're actually done using that promotional item, you can actually put it in your garden and grow something with it. And then in the middle, that's just a window cling that we give to our members to promote that they're a member, and they can probably display that at their storefront. Membership. So becoming a member of the Sustainable Spirits Program, you must fulfill a range of sustainability requirements. This covers water conservation, air, water pollution reduction, increased waste reduction, and expanding your involvement within your local community. Application process. You submit an application. It's a high-level application. So the first two things I like to receive from an applicant is their application and submit a checklist. So the checklist has 49 elements. We're going to go into it a little bit later, but it has 49 sustainability topics on it. You have to check off at least 25 of those requirements on the checklist in order to become a member. So the first two things I like to look for is an application and a checklist. Once we receive those two materials, we'll actually reach out to the member and ask for them to submit their utility data from the year before and their production data. And what we do with this data is we like to show them, oh, it takes you maybe 5 gallons of water to produce a gallon of beer, or this many kilowatt hours to produce a gallon of beer. And this is an established baseline for your facility, and we can compare that baseline to local and to national and international averages that other organizations have gathered, so we can show where you stand amongst your peers. It's a great way to look at your overhead, and it's also a great way to look at the resources that you are consuming at your facility. So once we get all that data, we'll compile it, we'll review it, we'll do an internal check within TDEC to make sure there's no compliance issues with your facility, and if there is, no problem, we'll let you know, hey, you may not be able to become a member right now, but in the future, if you work out these issues, you can become a member. And additionally, we can provide some of that support to help you figure out what it is you need to get back into compliance. We can get you into contact with the right people in TDEC. And additionally, the Small Business Environmental Assistance Program is within our Office of Sustainable Practices, and they provide free confidential technical assistance to any small business. So I like to say we're not in the business of snitching or telling anyone what to do, but we would love to help you get back into compliance if you're having compliance issues. Small Business Environmental Assistance Program can help you, and it's confidential, so they can help you achieve whatever it is you need to achieve within compliance and regulatory issues. Once we get all that information, we will do a site visit, so I'll schedule a site visit to come out to your facility and walk through it, and during this site visit, we're just going to note processes and how your system's laid out. We're going to talk about the checklist and go over it together. Usually I can help you find additional checks in the checklist, so if you think you're close to that 25, reach out to me. I think we can help you get there. Go over all that information, I take that data back, I come back home, I will write a detailed sustainability report. This sustainability report will cover everything that we reviewed, your checklist, your data, we provide you the baseline data, we compare it to your peers, and in the report we list off recommendations that were observed during our site visit. And again, these are recommendations, you don't have to do anything with them, but if you ever like to pursue them, we can help you with that. Once you get that sustainability report, you also get a letter of acceptance. So this is when you have been accepted into the program. And to maintain membership, we actually just ask that you keep providing your utility and production data every year to see how you are based off your established baseline. and we can work with you to help you figure out whatever data you'd like to include into that process. So the checklist, I'm going to go forward and back just so you can see there's 4 pages to the checklist. So it covers everything from water, air, waste, community, maintenance, all these different items. So all these different items are what is on the checklist, and it's designed for you to walk through your facility and just check off what you got going on. And if you have any questions, circle it so when we do a site visit, we can go over it together. And these are all available on our webpage, so you can get a digital copy, and if you can't find your webpage, we'll post the link later, but you can also reach out to me directly and I can send it to you. Next steps for the program. So we're always looking to increase membership, so if you're interested, please reach out to me or anyone within Office of Sustainable Practices to learn more about the program. We're always looking for additional feedback, so if you have any additional feedback, we'd love to hear it. We want to make this program designed specifically for the spirits producing industry and make it for them. We're always looking for additional resources, so if you have any great resources, please feel free to share them with me and I can get them on our webpage. Right now, we're currently working with an intern, and he's working on developing sub-metering guidelines. So this is a way to look at separating the water usage from production and front of house, and maybe if you have a restaurant. So it's a way to look at the water that's solely associated with your production. So these guidelines help you figure out how you can do that so you can really understand the water consumption at your facility. And this is a great segue into what we're looking to do with the value stream mapping. So value stream mapping is just quickly, and I don't want to go in depth because we have guidelines for this and you're more than welcome to take a look at our webpage, but it's a way to look at your consumables throughout the process of production. So I'm just going to start the very first part of, say, a brewery. They get a delivery of grain. That grain may get moved into a silo for storage. So if it's getting moved to that silo for storage, there's an electric motor moving some kind of auger to move the grain from the truck into the silo. So that's consumable resource right there. That's electricity. If we know the details on that electric motor, and you can do that by looking at the tag on the electric motor that's running it. You get that information from the electric motor, and you actually time how long it takes that motor to run. So say it takes you 30 minutes to empty a truckload into your silo. If it takes that long, you have enough data to actually really to determine how much energy was used in that particular process. And if you know your utility data, you actually know how much it costs you in electricity consumption to do that. So we like to look at through all the processes of your production, whether it's energy being used from an electric motor or natural gas being used for a boiler or for your kettle. We can look at all these consumables and determine, or you can determine what is your biggest consumption of resources throughout this process. So it's a great way for you to help to laser focus into particular processes and determine what is causing you the most consumption of resources. This is a great way to maybe reduce costs associated with those resources or reduction of pollution associated with those resources as well. So if you're really curious about that, reach out to us. We can send you some more information. But again, we also have guidelines listed on our webpage under online resources covering value stream mapping. I think it's at the bottom under maintenance. So that's kind of what I wanted to cover with you all today, just to give you a quick introduction to the Sustainable Spirits Program, but I really wanted to focus on giving as much time as we can for Chris to cover solar energy and solar use for the spirits industry. So we're getting ready to pass it over here, but I just wanted to have the pleasure to introduce Chris Kasaja. He leads Lightwave Solar in its pursuit to deliver quality solar power solutions across the residential, commercial, industrial, municipal, and utility sectors. He holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from Purdue University. He has over 20 years of engineering and management experience in the energy sector. He also serves on the board of Amicus Solar Cooperative and is president of the Tennessee Solar Industries Association. So I wanted to introduce Chris, and thank you for joining us.
No, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it, and appreciate the overview of the whole process. That's great to see, and great that you guys are doing this work. And I appreciate all the people that are interested in not just distilling. I am an avid fan, but doing it sustainably is just that much better. So, with that, let's kind of hop in, and I'm going to go over a lot of topics here, but try to give you kind of the full breadth, and then we can kind of dig into some things. But I think in general, the kind of the overarching themes are In Tennessee, if you guys have facilities outside of the Tennessee Valley, you may have heard of things like net metering or some other programs for buyback electricity. We don't have many of those in Tennessee other than avoided costs, and I'll go through that later, but we don't have a net metering regime. So I'll go over kind of what we look at as we evaluate these projects. But on the other side, there's also a number of opportunities for grants, for incentives for these projects that can make a good project that's 30 or 40% off with federal incentives to a great project that has that with depreciation to a why didn't I do this last week project if you add USDA grants to it that can pay for over 80% of some projects. So we're going to go through some of that. That's kind of the overarching, okay, there's opportunities here, but we have to figure out how to make it work on your facility. So I'm going to wear both my Tennessia hat as far as kind of the whole association and what we do for solar in the Valley, and then I'll talk more specifically on the stuff that we do at Lightwave. But big broad benefits with solar. Obviously, I think most of you have probably seen it in some way, shape, or form, but besides operating costs, using space that's available to, offset those costs, to branding, to greenhouse gas reduction. Obviously you're here and you're interested in this program because you've got, thoughts about not just saving money, but maybe saving carbon as well. And all this can go into kind of the branding regime. But at the end of the day, we have to figure out how to make that work and make it work at your site. So some of the big questions that we're asking then, when you look at the roof space, this is the Metro Nashville Police Department downtown, and you can see, we've got some shading concerns, we've got HVAC, we've got all kinds of different things we can work around. So that's one of the first things we look at is like, okay, how much energy are you using and how much space do we have available? And it's not just rooftop space. We can look at ground space if you have that around, or we've got parking spaces or parking canopy options too that we can look at. So we'll look at that and we'll say, okay, this is about what your energy bill is. Now we're going to look at what we can fit on your facility and try to look at how to maximize the equation for ROI then. And something that we'll look at, because we don't have a net metering regime in Tennessee, is we're going to look at what's called your interval data. So if you call your utility and say, hey, I've got meter XYZ123, can you send me the 15-minute interval data for my meter? They can send you an Excel sheet with how much energy you've used in 15-minute intervals over the last year. So we can then take the layout that we have on your roof, we can take that data, lay it over top of each other, and form that picture. And I've got some charts what that looks like later. But it's kind of an involved process up front to figure all that out. So as we're doing this, you can, I think, hear that it's not just, oh, well, hey, here's 200 kW solar, it's going to cost this much money, and here's the ROI. It's really an involved process up front to think through these different considerations, look at the load, look at the solar production, and try to maximize that equation. But again, all stuff I'll kind of hit on here, but stuff that the industry, not just Lightwave, has tools to help you evaluate. So as far as types of installations, just to kind of, again, soup starter, it's not just rooftop solar. We can do ground mount systems, we can do rooftop, we can do combinations thereof. There's parking canopies that can be done. So, this is a rather large one, but you can do just one of these rows if you want to put it out front, and it's not just solar, it's shaded parking, and maybe makes a statement. Maybe we can integrate electric vehicle charging with it as well. All things that kind of go into that equation. But again, kind of gets you thinking, we can do and look at all these types of things as you have land available and a need for that solar energy. So as far as sizing for return on investment then. So because if we export electricity in the Tennessee Valley, aside from a few programs that Nashville Electric Service and I think Clarksville Electric Department have started to come out that may give you a little bit more than what's called the avoided cost, those programs are nascent yet in that we don't have all the details to them. So when we do an evaluation, we're trying to utilize as much electricity as we can behind the meter or up front. Any energy that you don't use real time, we figure that you may get the avoided cost. And the avoided cost is not the 8 to 10 cents that you're paying retail. It's more like 2 to 5 cents that is the avoided utility cost on the grid. So you can tell, okay, the economics of that are much, much different. So what we're trying to balance then is kind of the next point, that as systems get bigger, we get economies of scale. So a 500 kW system on $1 per watt, that's the term the industry uses. So a kilowatt of solar with a total dollars, total kilowatts installed, and that's our dollar per watt there, is much less for a large system than it is a small system. Makes sense. But trying to balance that out to say, okay, let's build it big enough that we get the economies for building it, but not so big that we're not exporting too much electricity. And how will we balance those levers as we design that system? So, and then we're also looking at what your past usage is. So part of this is a struggle because, you know, many of you are undergoing expansions or different processes or conservation on the other side. So it's not just looking at what your past usage is, it's trying to predict, okay, we're going to do a big energy efficiency project, so we expect our usage to go down, or we're going to do an expansion and it's going to go and get much bigger. And part of that we also look at is individual meters. And so many times when you've done multiple expansions, you might have a new utility meter for each different system, or you've acquired adjacent properties, so there's different utility meters. The struggle we have too, or ultimately that you and us have in the industry, is when we put solar behind one meter, it's generating, but it's only offsetting that meter. So anything we export from that meter may, engineering-wise, get used next door, but you don't get credit for that next door. So the more primary metering, or primary metering is basically saying, instead of having 5 meters, can I just have one campus meter? The more of that you can do as you do your expansions, the easier it is for us to plan these projects. Many times we find, especially in your industry, that where you have the rooftops, brick houses, aging, things like that, isn't where you have the load. So you have the big rooftops and all the space over here, but you don't have electricity demand. But over here you have all the demand, but no space to put things. So the balance of saying, okay, if those were behind the same electricity meter, we could put solar on one and it would feed both. But if they're separately metered, it makes it more difficult. So again, something we look at it, we're trying to evaluate, okay, what makes the most sense for this? And maybe we have to build one big array, and you do have separate meters and we can't put them together, but we can separate the electrical output between them. So again, all tools that we can help you design and look through, but it is an iterative process that we go through as we do that. So kind of look at the next step. So one of the other concerns, and be thinking now as you're looking at the rooftops in your mind, is not just do I have the rooftop available, but you have certain processes just inherent to making spirits of different kinds that have different effluents. And so the picture on the top here is a customer we have that you can see is closer to an exhaust outlet, and you may or may not be able to see, but the panel on the right has kind of a black coating on it that's collected from that outlet there. That's obviously, occluding that panel, and solar works like batteries. So, all those kids' toys you had way back when you have, 6 batteries and it goes dead, and it's like, oh, maybe I'll just replace the one, and it kind of works for just a little bit, but doesn't really because all the others are dead. Solar works the same way. All the cells are in series. So if you have just that one panel that's bad, it's actually affecting the whole string of 10 or 12 panels too. So it's not just a matter of losing that little bit of output, you're losing a much larger portion. This particular customer, this was a known issue. However, they had their own goals that they wanted to work towards, and they have a cleaning regime there to clean those panels. Obviously, not all the panels need to be cleaned, but they can work on cleaning specific panels there. In general, though, panel cleaning, is anti-ROI there. So every dollar you spend cleaning the panel is a dollar you're not getting your ROI. So we try to avoid that. So again, as you're thinking about that, think about your rooftops that have exhibited that soiling, where this is going to be a problem. So let's kind of identify that up front, so we're not looking at those places. We're looking at the cleaner cleaner spaces. One of the other struggles we have with that is because on the roof they're at such a low pitch, we don't get the natural cleaning from the rain either. So, you know, we may be at a 5 or 10 degree tilt towards the sun here on a roof. On the ground, we're at a 25 or 30 degrees, so the rain does a much better job naturally of just cleaning stuff off. That even given the soiling here, it's still a concern because we just can't get it cleaned off without mechanically cleaning it. Broken up roof sections, just a consideration there. You know, obviously the cheapest way to build this is if I've got one big roof section and I can lay it all out. You can see the picture, especially on the bottom here, kind of the number of things that we had to work around. Very commonplace is you put all the HVAC and maybe other process fans and exhaust fans and that on the roof, and all stuff we can work around, but it does not only cut into the space that we can use to put the solar there, but as you can see on the top, that unit casts a shadow too. So again, I don't want to put a solar array right up next to it because it's going to be shaded 90% of the time, or at least half the time. And again, I have that shading problem of knowing what it's going to do to the rest of the string. All things we can figure out up front. We've got the tools to model. Again, collectively, the industry has the tools to model all this. But again, while you don't see, you know, panels right up next to stuff, while you see, you know, trying to avoid exhaust outlets, things like that. And then, as I mentioned before, the multiple meters. If you do have multiple meters, again, we just need to look at that and see if maybe we can put a primary meter in for the utility service, or if you're doing an expansion, maybe think about just trying to put it behind an existing service, especially if you're going to be putting solar in place as well. The fungal growth module cleaning, as I mentioned, you know, is there and something to work with. Roof space versus energy need, that's kind of what I hit up front, that you may have a much bigger energy need than you have roof to support it. Well, maybe we can put a portion on the roof, a portion on the ground, a portion is carport. We can look at the mix and match of the total equation and see what's there and how best to do that. And then roof loading. This is something that you know, is maybe the afterthought if I've done on this layout, but it's forefront in many of our minds, because when we put all this weight on the roof, we have to be sure that the roof was made to support that weight. So many times, not all the time, but many times we do a structural, and there are considerations for either reinforcing sections of the roof or avoiding certain sections of the roof. But again, all stuff up front that you want to look at, because we don't want to get out, be putting an array on and figure, whoop, we can't do this, we've overloaded this section, we're going to have to figure out where else to put it. So part of that initial analysis you want to do to be sure that wherever we put the solar, that the weight can be held by the roof there. And please, I have hit a lot, and I'm going to hit just a little bit more, but please put questions in the chat. Happy to answer those along the way. All right, so taking all that, we're going to dive into kind of one of the tools that we use called Energy Toolbase to do this. So trying to conceptualize, well, Chris, you said we don't have this net metering, so you're not buying back, so we're trying to do stuff behind the meter or use stuff real time. What does that mean? Well, here's the picture of what that looks like. So take, you know, what looks like the demand for your facility. We've got different peaks there. This is looks like it's about over a week time period. So you've got different peaks during the day that you have different processes that you're running during the daytime. That is the very top line, or the dark blue that's up there. And then the green represents what the solar generated for a facility is. And this is the tool that we do the modeling in, so we can look at what your demand over the last 12 months was, lay on top what the average solar of the last 30 years for the area has been, and then adjust the size, adjust it for which way the solar is tilted, and create this chart. And so when you look at it, if we look at what the green humps do with, and I don't think my arrow works, so I'll just try to describe it. That's when the solar comes up, and you can see the light blue then is what the net energy usage from the utility is that you would see. So when you do solar behind the meter, at the end of the month, it's going to look like you've done a massive energy efficiency upgrade. You're not going to see a credit for the solar that you generated. What you're going to see is a reduction in your energy usage. So that's what's articulated here, is that the green is the solar starting to generate, and as the solar generates, that means the light blue is the net energy that you have to buy from the utility. So you can see through the solar window, those are kind of flip-flopped as you look at the days as the week progresses. But then, of course, at night, in the early mornings, later evenings, you're not doing anything to offset that energy load. So that's why the light blue and the dark blue are the same there. You can also see on the right-hand side that there are times where your energy usage was lower than what the solar generation was. So anytime that light blue comes below the line, that's that exported value. And again, when we're looking at this, our solar generated for most of this week that we're looking at here is offsetting your retail rate. So it is the direct offset of a kilowatt hour that you're purchasing. So you get the full credit for that. However, when you export, you're probably only going to get 2 to 3, 4, 5 cents for that at the avoided energy cost there. So that's why we try to look at that export amount and really try to minimize what's there. So what we're generally looking at is if we don't have these other incentives that I'll talk about in a second, we're trying to minimize that export because it just really eats into the ROI of a project. However, if that export for you is not as important as what the carbon reduction is, and you've got a different value for what that carbon is, we can also play with that equation and say, okay, well, export is okay, we'll get a little bit of money for it, but you'll also get the renewable energy offset associated with that, and that may have a value for you in some way, shape, or form as you look through the value streams that Mark was going over as well. And I'll hit these bottom 2 points as well. But again, all tools that we can do, and we can tweak real time and see what things look like. So this then gets into that concept then of this is the same demand curve and the same solar that we were just looking at, only saying that, okay, what happens if I increase that solar? So this is the chart we create where at the bottom we say, okay, I'm not going to go with the 500 kW that last chart was. I'm going to start making that bigger. So what the light green line articulates then is what that percentage of export is, and the darker blue line is the kilowatt hours that are exported. Again, things we're looking at as we're trying to maximize the system and get it to work right for you. So we'll be able to go through this, but it's all then underpinned by the financial portion of it. So we're going to be doing both kind of equations or both analyses at the same time. So it's important that we get kind of the tug back and forth there right. So okay, Chris, you've gone through a lot of technical stuff. I'm probably swimming. I'm a little nervous that you guys took that little survey up front. I'm hoping that I don't make you less knowledgeable about solar at the end of this. Hoping I did at least a little bit there. But now I'm taking all that technical stuff and putting the other side of okay, Chris, what are the financial incentives? I can't even think about how much solar I want until I understand this. So financial incentives then start with the investment tax credit. So as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, we've got a full 30% tax credit that you can get as a tax-paying entity. It's even for government agencies, nonprofit agencies actually have an option for this now as well for parity there. But not only do you have that 30% tax credit, there are some adders in that tax credit for domestic content, for energy community areas, for low-income areas, other things that could be additional to that that equation. So it's like, okay, well, that's pretty good. That could take out a big chunk of the CapEx to start. On top of that, if you are a for-tax or for-profit entity, you can take depreciation, and there is accelerated depreciation that you can take for the project as well. So, okay. If I take 30%, maybe an adder or two, but at least the 30% of depreciation starts to make the projects look pretty good. Then the big kicker is if you are in a USDA grant eligible area and your business is USDA grant eligible. So again, I'm going to restate that. Only if you're eligible for the USDA REAP grant by location and by business type can you take this. But if you are, and I would invite you guys to look at the, you start by looking at the link below, or you can Google USDA REAP grant eligibility, and you can start to see that, wow, not only do I get those other credits, I could get up to a 50% credit on top of that, a grant on top of that. So you start to put all those together, and it puts together a really, really compelling picture for why would we not do this? I mean, it's part of our brand, part of our image, it saves money, and I can get most of it at little or, you know, a fractional cost of the upfront. There it makes a lot of sense. So, but it does come, again, with not everyone is USDA REAP eligible. So most, if all of you can get the 30% and maybe 10 or 20% more in extra credits and depreciation. So that's kind of the good project. And then the great, why didn't I do this yesterday project would be if you can get this REAP grant as well. And so what does that look like? So you look at that same 500 kW project, so that's 5,000 watts DC. We start to look at what that looks like, you know, from the standpoint of it's about $1.5 million project. That's a rough ballpark number depending on whether you're doing ground mount, carport, rooftop. It's all going to be different, but trying to just do some big round numbers to look there. So and I'm on the bottom left here. You get the federal tax credit, $450,000, the bonus depreciation for $267,000, and then if you get that REAP grant, it's another $750,000. So your net project cost, starting at $1.5 million, is $32,000. Again, not everyone will get this, but it really is compelling to at least look at. And again, even if you can't get the REAP grant, you start to do the analysis on, well, I can at least get the other two. Still a nice looking project there. One other thing that we do have in Tennessee, and actually TDEC is one administers this, is a sales tax exemption for solar and storage systems as well. So the system that we would install would be sales tax exempt as well for that. So again, more benefits that we have as we look at all the incentives that are there, but it creates a fairly compelling case right up front. So again, if you've done all that, the ROI is like almost instant on a project like that. But you're going to know upfront and at no cost really to you, the analyses up here to say that the project is going to look about like this. I'm eligible for these types of incentives. So I'll know pretty quickly up front once we've done all this analysis whether this project is going to make sense for me or not. So kind of looking then at the numbers and the total impact, again, we're looking at that same 500 kW project. All of your projects are going to be different sizes. 500 kW is just one that's kind of a middle ground node that we see for the industry now, many times based on trying to limit that export. But you can see what the impact of that is. I do want to add we have been very, very solar focused here. There is completely the option for battery storage as well. So if you take, and we go back to this chart, and I was talking about all these times when we were potentially exporting or we were looking at, exceeding what my demand was. If we did add battery storage, you could take up a bigger chunk of that and you could have a little bit of resiliency. The commercial systems are expensive though. It takes and can sometimes double what our initial upfront solar cost is. So we don't see it a lot, but there is the case to be made that you may have some critical processes or critical portions with refrigerators, things that you would want backed up anyway that could be integrated that could also help this picture here as well. But again, all things that kind of figure into what the financial picture looks like and then ultimately what we can do for the system ROI and thereby not only save money but save carbon and other resources as well. So I hit a lot of stuff there in 15 minutes and I wanted to, or 15, 20 minutes, but I wanted to leave enough time to go through questions here. So Mark, and Caleb, I don't know if we can open it up to questions or if people just need to type it in. I'm happy to do either, but what would be most useful or helpful?
Yeah, so we've had a couple questions come in,
Sure.
and just wanted to remind everybody, if you do have those questions, shoot those over in the chat box, and I will make sure that those get asked and hopefully get answered for you. But the first one, I think, it's more for you, Chris. It says, is there an added benefit to stacking additional alternative energy sources with solar?
Yes. So there's nothing to say that you know, especially if you're looking at the, you know, something to use sour mash or you know, other byproducts there through a digester or whatever, you can take, and we can model both of those together there too, because many of those may have their own nuances, but maybe generate at night and, you know, can take a bigger chunk out of that total energy curve. All things like we were talking about with knowing what your future energy demand will be, that we can integrate together. But the solar by itself is always grid connected. So unless you have a battery system that's completely different, we can talk about that separate, but solar only is always grid connected. So you're not going to be fighting one against the other. You're all going to be tied together on the grid for that. So that is kind of the natural mixing pot, if you will, for the kilowatt hours. So if you're over generating, things would just go out to the utility at that point.
Awesome. Yeah, and so this came in, and it could be for both of you guys. I'll let each of you sort of answer it. But it says, do y'all only work with Tennessee businesses? So I don't know. I think it came in while you were talking, Mark, but I think it could be answered by both of you.
Sure, I'll jump in real quick. For the Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation, we are focused on Tennessee businesses, but we love to collaborate with other organizations that are in or outside the state. If you're interested in your spirits producer, there are other states that are doing similar programs, or they usually have a P2 program that I can get you into contact with. So feel free to reach out and ask. I mean, you're more than welcome to ask any type of question and email me if you'd like. I'm here to help.
And from my perspective, the information I have gone over is largely Tennessee Valley Authority territory specific. We do business in Arkansas, Kentucky, Illinois, and kind of into the Southern Company areas where the rules are different. There's different programs, different things there that we would look at, but the basic process is going to be the same. It's just the economic analysis would change as we kind of filtered in those different incentives in those different states or areas.
Thanks, gentlemen. And then, Mark, I think this one might be more based towards you. It says, do you have a membership or services for planning and design of new distilleries?
So I have worked with distilleries and breweries in planning before, so we're more than happy to help provide some high-level technical assistance on their development of their organization. They can't become a member unless there's some type of production or bottling going on at their facility, but it doesn't mean they can't become a member in the future, or we can work with them during the planning phases to help them become more sustainable, and additionally to become a member once they're production.
Awesome. I'm not seeing any more questions. If you have some questions, or go ahead and send those now, of course. But if you know you're eating lunch or dinner later and you're like, oh man, I wish I would have asked Mark or Chris something about solar or about the Sustainable Spirits program, you know, you've got our contact information. Reach out to us at any time. We're always happy and hoping that we can be a resource for not just the spirit industry. I mean, I know that's what we're talking about here, but really just sustainability and environmental stewardship in total.
Are we going to do the Memphi now?
Yes, yes. So let's go ahead. If everyone can pull back up. If you haven't taken it away, it should, let's see. I'm going to take over presenting capabilities. So we're hoping that you were able to learn. Let's see, let's go to the next question. So same exact question, just asking how knowledgeable you feel now on these 4 topics. Oh, wow.
All right. All right. Uh-oh. Come on. Come on. To the right.
There's definite growth, so we love to see that. We appreciate really appreciate everybody in the audience taking time to do these questions for us. It just helps us build out metrics for excuse me, if we're actually able to bring an educational aspect to our webinars, and that's really our main goal. So I'm going to leave this up here for just one more second, and then we'll close out. I'm going to check, let's see.
Well, you're doing that. I do thank you guys for the opportunity just to go over kind of what solar can do, and obviously it's exciting with the incentives there to see money that can come to kind of our local area here through economic development. So I appreciate the opportunity, appreciate everyone's attention today.
Yeah, Mark went ahead and put his email into. Oh, you guys both put your emails in there, so perfect. Yeah, if in the audience, if you think of a question later and you're like, man, I wish I would have asked that, I know these guys are happy to reach back out to you and try to get your questions answered. So this has been recorded, and the link to that will be sent out along with the presentation in a PDF form. I'll also add both of our presenters' emails so that you can get in contact with them if you haven't written it down already. Really wanted to say thanks to our speakers. Mark, you always kill it. Chris, I learned so much, and that's something that I really enjoy about hosting these webinars, is getting to learn about the great work that people do around the state and really just around the world when it comes to solar. I had no idea about a lot of that information, so it's something that I'm going to take with me and move forward. So I'll give everybody about 7 more minutes back to their day when they thought they were going to use it. But
we got one more question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'll just read it out loud. It says,
oh, yeah.
Let me see here. Thank you for the great presentation. Took a lot away from this. Oh wait, where'd it go? Sorry, it might be
above that one.
Yeah, I can't scroll up. Sorry.
Does Chris work on the planning phase? Seems more efficient to design it into a system than to build it after a traditional system is already installed.
100%. It's easier to do it up front, and I would encourage you to think about that. Even if solar isn't right for you now and you're building a new building, the incremental cost to be sure that the roof can hold it or that there's space for interconnection is not that great to leave the option later. All that being said, we work every day on systems that are 50 years old and figuring out how to interconnect behind them. So it's not an impediment to do it after the fact. We do it every day, but it is definitely easier to plan it in up front, and would encourage you to do that even if you're not thinking about solar in the immediate future. And then as far as the industries in Alabama, especially in northern Alabama and the Tennessee region yet, or the TVA region yet, a lot of the same rules apply, but there are opportunities with Alabama Power in that as well. In what we describe as behind the meter solar works pretty much anywhere there outside of that. So anything that we can do with utility is generally incremental or gravy to the equation as well.
All right, gentlemen, well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate everybody's time that attended. Register, be on the lookout for our next Sustainable Spirits webinar of the series for this year. We'll send reminders about that. Always be checking our website for new resources and just new information about our program. So thanks, Chris. Thanks, Mark. Hope you all have a great day.
Yes, too. Thank you.
Thank you.